You look like you vote for Trump. You look like you put a pillowcase on and follow me straight home. I love the good old days. Punch him in the face. Get him out! Now, white man, since we preaching hate so much, I want you to have your country back. Make your country great again. But there's one thing, and I want one white person to answer me, please. You're walking by and looking at me going down the escalator like your looks could kill. Your looks can't kill. Your looks can't kill. Your bombs and your missiles and your rope, that could kill. White man, you want to make your country great again. Good. Show me which country is yours.
Well, I think the birth control, if you keep your population more or less static until you pick up your resources, certainly you'll keep them and prevent their starving.
Well, what's more important, birth control or picking up the resources?
Well, picking up the resources, there's just a limit to that, too. There's just so much. Take Japan. And she cannot feed. They've had the best experts come there when MacArthur was there. And the best experts have said they have 20 million more people than they can feed. She's got to be fed outside in some way. She's got to have that kind of help if she's going to keep from fighting.
But certainly around the world there is potential agricultural land that is not being properly used now. Just this past year, on May 21st, the New York Times summarized an important study of the world's food resources made by Professor James Bonner of the California Institute of Technology. Professor Bonner says the world is not using 1 billion acres of potential agricultural land, and he adds that if this land were used and present agricultural land were improved, the entire world could be fed adequately, even if the population increased by 1/3 in the next 50 years.
Oh, Mr. Wallace, you hear so many fantastic things, what can happen, what may happen. This and that, I've heard it for the last 30 years at any rate, of what could be done, but it's never done. And the thing is, what is it now? What have we got today? A very distinguished woman spoke to me about Arizona. And she said, I wish you wouldn't talk about population. She said, all the population of the United States can be put in one state. And I said, what state? She said, Arizona. I said, did you ever hear of caliche? She didn't know that I was talking about a delicatessen or what. I said, well, caliche is harder than any rock. And it is about 3 inches below the ground, where it looks beautiful. It looks as if you could have food. It looks as if you could have corn or wheat or cotton. But as a matter of fact, you have to dynamite caliche out of the ground in order to have a little shrub, have a little grass or a few flowers. So many problems when it comes to that. And the demographers, I never heard of anyone that would agree with that we could have another in the world.
Another third. Well, you say that originally the opposition was in all law, and you had to fight against that. Today, your opposition stems mainly from where? From what source?
Well, I think that the opposition is mainly from the hierarchy of the Roman Catholic Church.
Of the Church. Well, now
hierarchy.
Of the hierarchy of the Church. You feel that the parishioners themselves, the lay people in the Church, are not against birth control.
I feel they come to all of our clinics just the same as the non-Catholics do. Exactly the same.
Well, let's look at the official Catholic position. Opposition to birth control. I read now from a church publication called The Question Box. In forbidding birth control, it says the following. It says, the immediate purpose and primary end of marriage is the begetting of children. When the marital relation is so used as to render the fulfillment of its purposes impossible, that is by birth control, it is used unethically and unnaturally. Now, what's wrong with that position?
Well, it's very wrong. It's not normal. It's not, it has the wrong attitude toward marriage, toward love, toward the relationships between men and women.
Well, the natural law, they say, is that first of all, the primary function of sex in marriage is to beget children. Do you disagree with that?
I disagree with it 100%.
Your feeling is what, then?
My feeling is love and the attraction between men and women. In many cases, the very finest relationship has nothing to do with bearing a child. It's secondary. Many, many times we know that. You see your birth rate, you talk to people who have very happy marriages and they're not having babies every year. Yes, I think that's a celibate attitude. Surely.
A celibate attitude, but you agree that Catholicism, according to the tenets of Catholicism, they rule that birth control violates not only the church's position, it isn't the church's position, but they say that it violates a natural law, as I have just explained. Therefore, birth control is a sin, no matter who practices it. Now, the violation of the natural law, according you certainly can take no issue with the natural law as the hierarchy of the Catholic Church regards it.
Well, I certainly do take issue with it. And I think it's untrue, and I think it's unnatural.
Well, let me ask you...
I think it bears it out that it's an unnatural attitude to take. And how do they know? I mean, after all, they're celibates. They don't know love. They don't know marriage. They know nothing about bringing up children or any of the marriage problems of life. And yet they speak to people as if they were God.
First, 24-year-old Tonya Reaves had an abortion, a D&E, dilation and evacuation procedure, at Planned Parenthood on Michigan Avenue at 11 a.m., according to documents. Then there was bleeding, and at 4:30 she was transferred to Northwestern, where she underwent another D&E, basically another abortion. That was at 5:30. Then pain and more tests, and one of those tests revealed a perforation, documents say. Then surgery at 12 minutes past 10 p.m. An uncontrollable bleed was found. Reaves did not regain consciousness and was pronounced dead at 11:20 p.m. in the operating room. Steve Miller, News Radio 780 and 105.9 FM WBBM.
I'm Dr. Frida Bush, a board-certified obstetrician gynecologist. The autopsy report, Tonya Reaves, 24-year-old, who was 16 weeks or 4 months pregnant, states the cause of death included hemorrhage, excessive blood loss due to a cervical dilatation and evacuation or D&E procedure done at an abortion clinic. It was noted at the time of emergency surgery at the hospital that there was extensive perforation of the left broad ligament with possible transection of the left uterine artery and vein, resulting in blood in the abdomen, approximately 1.5 liters. The D&E procedure Tonya underwent is the most common procedure that is done during the second trimester by abortionists using forceps that dismembers the baby and pulls it out of the woman's uterus one body part at a time. First, the woman is placed on the examination table in the birthing position. An instrument is placed in her vagina, which holds it open so the top of the uterus, the entrance into the womb or the cervix, can be seen. Normally, that cervix will barely accept a Q-tip, but it is dilated to accept a plastic tubing about 9 inches long and 1/4 of an inch in diameter. The tubing is connected to a suction machine to pull out the clear amniotic fluid that is meant naturally to protect the growing baby. Next, a stainless steel instrument about 13 inches long with large jaws 2.5 inches wide with rows of sharp ridges of teeth are inserted into the womb to grasp and crush whatever body part it gets, so it can be pulled out of the womb. The abortionist uses this instrument repeatedly to dismember the baby. Once during my OBGYN residency training, I witnessed a D&E procedure. I'll never forget the sound of the arms and legs and spine as they were being broken and the tissue torn from the baby. The snapping and the popping are distinctive sounds. For years, I could also see the body parts on the abortionist's table as he reassembled them to make sure that no parts were left behind. It is important also to note the second trimester D&E procedure is a blind process. In other words, the abortionist cannot see inside of the womb to determine what part he's grabbing. And the walls of the uterus are soft and thin, and you have to take care not to go through the walls and injure some of the woman's body vital organs. I can tell you, injury to the mother is a known complication. of the D&E procedure. And for Tonya, the injury caused